Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
The seismographs at Yellowstone have been down for almost 2 weeks now. People are starting to feel a chill in the air as these seismographs at Yellowstone National Park and the University of Utah, which monitors the Yellowstone supervolcano, have been down. No one has an idea as to why both of them have been down at the same time. However, typically they will let us know when they're about to do maintenance so as to not frighten people. This time that did not happen and they have just been down without a reason. This is directly after this seismograph was recorded at Yellowstone. And as all of this is going on, a man on TikTok is posting videos of the ground shaking. This man lives on a ranch near the Yellowstone National Park. In one of these videos, he has a water bottle on the ground. And as he's recording, you can see several small fissures pop up. And then a bit into the video, the water bottle falls over. And this person has posted many videos of the ground shaking to such an extreme degree that it sounds like water is boiling underneath the surface of the crust.
I tried looking up the seismic activity at Yellowstone, and I was able to access it pretty much immediately. I couldn't find any information saying that the website's been down or anything. So if it was, they've now got it back up and running. And I added that clip of that water bottle after he said that you could find the video of it on TikTok. According to the data on the U.S. Geological Survey's website, all the seismic activity that they're seeing right now is indicating just normal volcanic behavior. I'm not really sure that I believe that, though. 2 weeks ago, we were seeing video after video being posted of all the animals fleeing the area, and now the ground there is shaking so hard you can't set a water bottle upright. And if this thing were about to explode, I highly doubt that they would tell all of us about it. They're not going to warn anyone. They're trying to depopulate us as it is. Why would they give anyone a heads up about their imminent demise? I would say it's completely in their wheelhouse to just let everyone perish and then just release a fake apology later saying that their equipment malfunctioned or something. I certainly won't be heading there for vacation anytime soon, I know that.
Hostile alien ship entering our solar system has just entered phase 2, right? For those of you still asleep, this is moving into something more, right? So we've had the hostile narrative pushed from news sources, Avi Loeb and all these other people talking about this hostile alien ship coming to, coming for Earth, basically. Now, we've had government interest pushing for more information on this object. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, right? I'm urging NASA to extend the Juno mission to study interstellar object 3I Atlas. Thank you, Avi Loeb, for your continued dedication exploring our universe. We must seize the opportunity for groundbreaking discovery. Right, this is now being set up for something potentially more. Step 3, hopefully it doesn't get to that point, okay? But now, if they can actually kind of work out the maths and all this sort of stuff in NASA to see if Juno could actually pull off a maneuver such as this to get closer towards this object and study it, right? Oh. Guys, please just look into what's going on, alright? And just see how things are unfolding. Because it's not looking good, Bev. Alright?
Alright, so now the alien mothership that they said was this threat that's going to be here around November is not heading to Earth at all. Now they're claiming that it's going to pass by Jupiter in March of next year, yet it's still moving the speed of light. And the more I dig, the more I'm seeing reports that general consensus on what this object is and where it's headed cannot be reached by the scientific community. Everyone's saying that the team who released this initial report that freaked everybody out is just making a false claim. Why is everyone suddenly backtracking on the story? I'm going to say they either made this initial report just to see how everyone would react to it, or they were planning to follow through with their initial plan, and whenever they released this information, most people jump to the false flag alien attack narrative. So now they have no choice but to just regroup and go with plan B, whatever that is. This is a good reason why you should always doubt any claims being made by NASA. They're constantly just throwing out theories as fact with no data to support it. They can't even keep their story straight. And this is a pretty big story. Why are we giving these people our money? Hey, Don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com.
It's Nephilim. It is DNA manipulation, and the whole thing of end times DNA manipulation is as it was in the days of Noah. So as it was in the days of Noah, like what was going on? Well, the only person that came straight from Adam, and that by the time that Noah was around, it says Noah was perfect in all of his generations. He was genetically perfect. He hadn't been contaminated by all these dark and demonic forces that manifested in all kinds of different ways. He was perfect, and he was generationally perfect. That's what the Word of God says. He was perfect in all of his generations. Well, just exactly like that, there's this plan. One of the ways that Nephilim manifests, as the giants that were in the days of Noah, the Nephilim, the Crimea, those kinds of things, they don't just manifest in the giant on the ridge, or the manifest in the hairy creature in the woods, or the skinwalker, or whatever. They hide in God-King bloodlines. They hide in generation in bloodlines. Now, there's always been a seed war. Genesis chapter 3 describes a seed war, the first of 400 messianic promises of King Jesus. Genesis chapter 3 is describing it's 3:15. There's always going to be a war between our seed and your seed. And then you go over into the book of Daniel. He says, hey, the head is as gold, the shoulders are as silver. It goes down to brass, and it gets down to iron and clay mixed. And it says this whenever he interprets it in the book of Daniel, and their seed shall mix with yours. It's talking about at the end times, that mixing of the seed's going to be a big priority. So if it's transgender, if it's transhuman, it's all about trans, which is transgression.
I may be reading more into this than what he's actually implying here, but how odd is it that we're warned that these fallen angels are going to attempt to mix with our bloodlines, and they just pumped out that mess that manipulates DNA and forced almost everybody on the planet to take it. Just keep in mind, this is literally an idea that popped into my head as I was watching that clip, and I have absolutely zero evidence to support it, so take it with a grain of salt. But if almost every other thing that they do has something to do with something satanic, which I just keep noticing the more I dig into pretty much everything, maybe that's a thread worth pulling on. That might have been an attempt to see who they could mix with, manipulate the DNA, and then see who's receptive to it and whose bodies can't handle it. I don't know. What do y'all think? Even I feel like I might be reaching on this one, but I'm just constantly trying to figure out what the real agenda was there, because it certainly had nothing to do with public safety.
Unfortunately, I think this is just the beginning. So I've learned when people tell you what they're going to do, don't ignore them. So when the UN and Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab tell you that they've got a UN 2030 plan with sustainable development goals, I think there are 17 or 21 of them, and every one of them says you won't be traveling, you won't have a private car, we won't be using international shipping to move goods around, there won't be any flights except military or perhaps very rich people, you won't own anything and you'll be happy. You probably won't live in your own house. You'll be using much less energy for everything, including heating, manufactured goods, and so on. When they tell you that, you should assume that they're serious about it. And so I think COVID has been part one of a multi-act play that's going to take 10 years that will destroy the liberal democracies completely. If you think you're living in a democracy, now ask yourself who you could vote for that would change this, because I don't think there's anyone you can vote for anywhere that is guaranteed things. So I don't have an answer, but I'm telling you, I think we're sliding down through the gates of hell. I'm speaking out. There's nothing in it for me. I've lost lots of money, all my friends. I'm away from my home and family, and I'm speaking out because, as I close, I am absolutely sure what I've told you is substantially true.
That was Dr. Michael Yeadon. He was their vice president from 1995 until 2011. According to the internet, he was once a prominent, well-regarded scientist turned anti-coof nutjob. But I highly doubt that the guy was sounding the alarm because he forgot all of his education. I highly doubt that he forgot all of his experience from a decade and a half of being the vice president at one of the world's most evil corporations. I highly doubt that he switched his views use simply to stay relevant in the media. I think he's become a prominent voice in the bodily autonomy movement for a reason. The guy has the background to back up what he's saying, and I don't want to make anyone panic. That is never my goal, but it's starting to look like the writing is on the wall. These people are not going to stop until they pull this off successfully. Everyone might want to make sure they're ready to check out of this place.
Do y'all remember this Hubble telescope image of the kingdom of heaven that supposedly Nashal was hiding from us? Let me start this off with I would never harm myself and I'm perfectly happy. Wait till you see what I found, because I proved it, and then after I proved it, they started trying to hide it from me actively as I was doing it. To be honest, I kind of feel like I'm being watched because things were changing right in front of my face. But first, let me jog your memory and I'll be right back.
Why am I just now finding out that in 1994 they found the kingdom of heaven in the waters above? Before y'all try to debunk, watch the whole video, it gets deep. First off, this is a real image that was observed with the Hubble telescope, and it was top secret. It was 1994, and NASA refused to acknowledge the existence of this photo. Why? Because NASA's to cover up God. The book of Isaiah literally tells us that God himself sits above the firmament and watches below as crickets. They tried to claim it was satire, but you can look it up for yourself. They claim it's quadrillion miles away. We know that's not true, but that's not the only thing they found in space. What does this look like to you? In what they call a galaxy, they literally found a portrait, an image of Jesus Christ on the cross. The Bible tells us Jesus was slain since the foundation of the world. Since the creation of the world, he was slain. And here's a wonder right in our skies. Wait till you see how I'm going to prove this. Before that, they will say, the kingdom of heaven is inside you. Do you think there's not a physical manifestation of the kingdom of heaven? Look at the angels who are spiritual and interdimensional, but in the firmament. This telescope right here belongs to the Vatican. That's right, the Vatican. The same Vatican that have all the books of mankind in their secret library, as well as physical evidence and keys of Jesus Christ himself. So why do they have one of the world's strongest telescopes? Because they know, and they're observing the kingdom of heaven, his angels, and so much more. And that is why the Vatican, as well as NASA, is obsessed with the waters above the firmament. And yes, wherever the name originated, the Vatican calls this telescope Lucifer. And NASA's job is to make sure you don't know that the kingdom of heaven is real, that Jesus is real, and that there's a firmament above us. And God's wonders will forever be seen until he returns. And maybe even after.
Now that you remember, this is so freaking crazy. So what happened was, first I reverse searched it and AI gave me a summary. By the way, no matter how big I blow up the image, you still can't read it, but it knows everything it said. And with it being so blurry, no human eye could read it. It cannot even be enhanced by AI. It was able to have abode and dwelling of the earth. It knows the dating. It even knows the website link. Little did I know I should have screen recorded myself doing all this stuff because it changed almost immediately. So I copied the link and it went straight to their page, then downloaded something, then turned off. I have no reason to lie to y'all, and then I tried to screen record it. Keep in mind, I did it twice and it worked both times, and then when I started screen recording, it said site cannot be reached. Now remember, this right here was the image that I reverse searched. It's so blurry you cannot even make out the lettering, but it knew exactly that HubbleSite.org was a legitimate website. And it went so far but to give me this link which you saw in the old screenshot. Maybe I'll let you try it. Here's where it gets even crazier. So I went to a Chinese website and I translated it to English. It had a story about a Dr. Mason working with NASA in 1994 and 1993. The picture was allegedly from December 26, 1994. And what would you know? There was a Dr. Mason that was working with the Hubble telescope with Nashal in December of 1994, looking at storms in Saturn and primeval galaxies. What are the odds? Dr. Mason said the city was undoubtedly heaven because as far as we know, human life could not exist in an airless space. That's it. This is the proof we've been waiting for. Dr. Mason, a believer in God, excitedly declared. I mean, what are the odds? I reverse searched this. You can't see any of this stuff up, especially not this link, but it works and it brings me there and starts downloading stuff to my phone and will not even show me what it downloaded. And then all of a sudden I can't do it no more. I knew this was real when I first saw it. And it gets even crazier. After I reverse searched it and got a link for it out of nowhere and went there and came back to do it again while screen recording, it changed its whole narrative. it would either not show me a link, or it would just straight up tell me that it was now a hoax. There is a way I can still track it down even if it's been deleted, and I will get it. They are hiding God like they have always done.
I in no way claim to be an expert on scripture, but in my opinion, when the Bible says that Jesus was slain from the foundation of the world, I don't think it's saying that he was slain at the beginning of the creation. I think it's just saying that God knew that this was going to happen. He knows all things, past, present, and future. I think he's just saying that Christ's crucifixion would be necessary, and he knew that from the foundation of the world. It was predestined. Also, though the internet may be trying to mislead me, I couldn't find any connection to the Vatican owning that Lucifer telescope, which did get renamed to Lucy, as if that's better, back in 2012 because a bunch of people threw a fit about it. However, the way his search results kept changing while he was trying to track down the original copy of this photo, that is highly suspicious to say the least. I just wonder what that website downloaded on this guy's phone. No doubt that guy just put himself on a list that he probably does not want to be on. Everything he does on his phone is probably being monitored now.
Apollo does not have dominion on the earth now. He's physically imprisoned until they unlock him.
Is he one of the angels from like Jude 1:7, I think?
He's not an angel. He is a man who became another thing. He goes by Dionysus. He goes by a lot of different names. Remember, Yahweh's weapon at Babel, they built a great city, which was the throne of Satan, the Eye of Ra, a physical city that he would ascend into the heavens with and live as Mount Olympus, we call it in other mythology, physically live in the sky in a cloaked city. That's his city in the sky that you'll see referenced all over, like the Death Star that's going to come back when the Father casts him down to the earth. Woe to you, inhabitants of the earth, because the God of this age has come down. The dragon's come down and he has great wrath. He's only got 42 months. But his shot caller on the earth is going to be the beast who rises. That's Apollo. It's not some Nikolai Carpathia and Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins Left Behind series brainwashed America and the world to think that it's some dude who's going to just show up one day and be real politically active. Not that guy. It's named in the Bible explicitly for a reason. It's not like a questionable thing. Death follows him. That's Anubis. That's the jackal-headed god. That's the false prophet. It's plainly said in the scriptures. They are going to come and physically inhabit actual thrones on the earth. The dragon, the devil, Azazel, is going to give his power, his reign, over to Apollo. They won't go by these names, right? They'll call him like the Traveler. They're going to call him celestial hosts. These gods, these aliens that have come. The guys who gave us life. Thank you, Prometheus. Those guys. That'll be much more the narrative that's conducive for their agenda. But these X-Men, like, they are literally children, bloodline inheritance children from Nimrod, the tower. Others come from other gods, other immortals that taught the secrets of heaven. It's not always that they had with women to inseminate their seed. Sometimes they took their blood, they feed on humans, they get blood in their bodies, and when they run out, it physically runs out of their body, they need to recharge. They can give that blood to people to make them their children in a different way that circumvents the curse. They're lawyers and they're looking for loopholes. And if they let you drink their blood and not inseminate you, they've got a way out.
There is a lot to unpack in this one, and I don't really know how much of what he's saying is actually true. But if you read the book, The Nephilim Look Like Clowns by Paul Stobbs, which I simply cannot recommend enough, all of this stuff starts to make a lot more sense. But I think there's certainly enough evidence to make this theory plausible. When these so-called aliens show up and they all look like a bunch of dog-headed beings with face paint on, I think we'll have our answer. The sad part is, there's just far too many people who hear theories like this and just immediately write it off as crazy talk and won't even bother to dig into it. And I'll admit, it does sound crazy. But if you dig, you'll see the evidence overwhelmingly points to these ancient gods being the fallen angels out of Scripture. These old gods weren't just made up off the top of people's heads. They were real. And when you finally make that connection, when you finally realize the truth that they've been keeping from us, it really does make everything start falling into into place. You just have to be willing to go anywhere the evidence points you, regardless of what you find.
With all this AI job takeovers, what are we hearing now lately? Layoffs, layoffs, layoffs. Everybody's getting laid off. But it seems like the blowback isn't as bad because everybody just feels like there's nothing you can do about it.
Everyone thought AI was going to take customer service jobs or consultant jobs or frontline jobs. It's taking Google's search jobs. Google is going through a lot of changes right now. They're offering buyouts to employees, especially within search, and bringing them to the AI division.
The CEO of Amazon telling the company's employees that some of their jobs will be replaced by AI and that Amazon's workforce is expected to shrink in the coming years as AI's role expands.
In recent layoffs, AI's role may be bigger than companies are letting on.
I really don't think people understand what is coming over the next 18 months. We are seeing what they are calling the Great Restructuring.
This is real. 24-year-old entrepreneur named Aiden Brannigan is launching a layoff bot that will automate your layoff process, streamline workforce reductions with AI-powered employee selection, automated documentation, blah, blah, blah. Are we serious?
Chad, is this real?
Are we serious with this?
People are becoming so adapted to the imminence of layoffs, they're creating apps to help companies become more efficient in their efficiency. Oh, you need to lay off people. You're talking 30,000 layoffs? How are you going to go through all of that? Why don't you buy my platform service where we go through all your employees and we use AI to automate your layoffs that you're laying off because of AI?
Just looking at how things are playing out, I'm thinking they're going to reduce the workforce down to the point that most of the population is on unemployment. And there aren't going to be enough jobs for most of those people to go out and replace their income on their own. Then the government's going to step in and do that whole I'm from the government and I'm here to help shtick. And then they're going to usher in the beginning of the basic universal income, just giving people a survival level of income every month for nothing in return. And then after that, whenever the government's the one signing your paycheck every month, they'll just say that the easiest way for them to do that is to do it all digitally. And that will be how they get the final holdouts on board with this central bank digital currency. All I know is it has never been a better time to get a job in the trades. And I know some of those are probably even about to be automated, but it's going to be a while before they figure out how to get a robot to put new electrical and plumbing in a remodel. Those jobs should be safe for at least a little while.
I really didn't want to do this, so if I disappear after this video, well, I think you'll know why. Everyone's been asking me about this. I can't believe I'm actually doing it, but this is 0 point energy. More specifically, this is nothing. Literally, a computer simulation of how nothing looks like. Just empty space, the simplest possible thing in our universe. And dozens of inventors have used this to build devices that seemingly create energy out of thin air. Machines that defy gravity, bend the fabric of space-time, levitate and fly with no visible propulsion, and generate virtually limitless energy with minimal to no input. But as soon as they patent and or publicize their inventions, they disappear. And at this point, there's a chance that I may too. Because this is how that technology is said to work, for entertainment purposes only. This simulation of nothing shows us that when we remove all matter, energy, and particles from any given area, what we're left with is the raw space field in which all matter exists. This is called the Higgs field and is governed by the laws of quantum mechanics. There's a principle in quantum mechanics called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which states that nothing is allowed to sit perfectly still, even the field itself. So even with nothing there, according to this principle, this field is constantly rippling and fluctuating in a very complicated scientific way. These are called quantum vacuum fluctuations, a sea of quantum particles that briefly blink in and out of existence from the perspective of our dimension. Put it like this: imagine a two-dimensional being that exists on a sheet of paper, Johnny Flat. If I now lay my finger on the paper, he will perceive it in his dimension as a 2D cross-section of my fingertip, basically a circle. If I lift my finger and put it down on another part of that paper, from the perspective of Johnny Flat, that circle disappeared from existence and reappeared somewhere else. Impossible from the paradigm of his reality, because I lifted my finger into the third dimension to do so, which he doesn't have access to. This is one theory of what those quantum fluctuations might be, just in higher dimensions above the three-dimensional reality we exist in, if that made made any sense. Think of it as 4-dimensional space dust briefly passing through our 3-dimensional world. And when these quantum particles do pop in and out of existence, they create energy, which was proven in 1997 with the Casimir effect, which exerted a measurable force on 2 closely spaced metal plates through these quantum fluctuations. Zero-point energy harnesses these fluctuations and converts them into a usable energy source, meaning empty space isn't really empty or still at all, but is actually brimming with energy. According to Hal Puthoff, a leading researcher in this field, when you crunch the numbers, we find out there's enough energy, the volume of space the size of a coffee cup, to evaporate all of the world's oceans. Energy that is not only free and virtually unlimited, but insanely powerful as well. And you'll notice that whoever advocates this type of energy is quickly labeled a fraud, a pseudoscientist, or just a wacky, evil person to discredit their claims. Well, that's because in today's society, energy is also money, dominating the biggest industries of our modern world. Energy companies, oil, coal, gas, nuclear, our entire civilization runs on the grid and relies on these expensive resources to provide us with the energy that powers everyday life. Free or wildly cheap energy that's readily available to everyone and also kinda unlimited would topple these energy empires and, to be fair, likely our entire economic system as well. So naturally, it is in the best financial interest of these trillion-dollar energy conglomerates to try to suppress zero-point energy technology if it does exist. And of course, their budget to do so is essentially unlimited, so it's exactly what they've been doing for as long as we can remember.
It's blatantly obvious to me that that's going on, and we've talked about it on the channel here several times before. What I want to talk about is the idea of harnessing this zero-point energy. If the average Joe has kept accidentally figuring this stuff out throughout history to the point that we have a laundry list of genius inventors who keep dying under mysterious circumstances, would it not make sense that the government has probably known about this stuff all the way back at the start of their institutions? I think this makes it pretty plausible that all of the crafts that we keep seeing flying around overhead are all the government. They're government designed, they're government made. We got that report from Ross Coulthorpe just a couple weeks ago saying that he's got all the evidence he needs to prove to him that Lockheed Martin is the designer and the manufacturer of the Tic Tac UFO. And let me tell you, the internet is going hard at trying to discredit that man right now. Everything claims that it's a hoax, but that's a pretty big claim to make with the reputation the guy has if he's not 100% sure. That's essentially deciding to throw your career away. But I'm starting to think that they didn't even discover this stuff by backwards engineering down to alien crafts. I think they've just been working on advancing things behind the scenes and hiding all the progress from us for so long that they're able to create things that our brains just simply can't understand. And I think the whole thing was done with just a singular goal in mind, to just convince the general population that we've been visited by people from another planet.
Yo, you need to see this clip. Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson discussing the end times.
I sat with some biblical scholars, some real scholars, and we were talking about, they were teaching me about the end times. And the whole time I'm like, this sounds familiar. Think I'm seeing some of this now. And we got to the end and we were all crying because it could be, everybody always says this, you know, the apostles said this and they were wrong. So likely very wrong on this, but it feels like the end times. Enough of the signs are here that it could happen quickly. For thousands of years, people have waited. The apostles said it was coming in their lifetime, the second coming of Christ. It is going to be a nightmare. Read the book.
Well, that was quite a statement. The apostles were wrong about the end times. They were wrong about the return of Jesus. And it's interesting that he mentioned that he was talking with biblical scholars who were explaining to him about the end times. So it sounds like a mainstream Christian position. And it is. The modern teaching about the end times is that it hasn't happened yet, that Jesus has not returned. But rest assured, the apostles did believe it was the end times. I mean, Peter said the end of all things was at hand. John said it was the last hour. Paul even encouraged people to not get married because the world as they knew it was about to end. So why did they believe this? Well, because that's what Jesus told them. Jesus told them in Matthew 10:23 that they would not have gone through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Matthew 16:28, some of you standing here will not taste death until the Son of Man comes into his kingdom. In the Gospel of John, Jesus tells Peter that what is it to you if I leave John alive until I return? Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13. Before this generation passes away, all these things will be fulfilled. John is even told in the book of Revelation to not seal it up because the time is at hand. So that is why they believed it was the end times. That is why they believed the return of Jesus was imminent. So Glenn Beck was not wrong that they believed that. What he is wrong about is that they were wrong, that the Bible's wrong. There's obviously a fundamental misunderstanding about what the end times are or what they were. I believe Jesus. I believe the apostles. I disagree with Glenn Beck. Who do you agree with?
You either believe everything in that book is the Word of God, or you have to question all of it. The more I dig into this idea, the more I'm confused by people who hold this point of view. How can you believe that Jesus is going to bring you to heaven if you question the point-blank statements that he made on the date of his return? Everyone needs to look into the book of Revelation, chapter 20. I think that's where things really started falling into place for me. And when you look at everything that's about to happen, if we are on that timeline, I think it actually makes you feel better. That would mean that a lot of the really bad stuff that's talked about in Revelations has already taken place. We aren't going to have to live through some of that stuff if this is true. And that's not what I'm leaning on that's making me look in that direction. It's all of the external evidence that's pointing toward this being our current timeline. And before we go, I know that we've had a lot of biblical stuff in here today. That wasn't intentional. It just accidentally ended up being that way. Sometimes I just find a bunch of clips that happen to tie into each other like this. But if you feel like a lot of the stuff that we look at on a daily basis all fits together somehow, but you aren't quite certain how it's all connected, Revelations chapter 20 is where you need to read to start seeing all of these pieces begin to fall into place. But get ready, everybody. Things are about to get really wild. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back soon with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com. And don't forget to drop a photo of your merch over in the Discord to get your photo in a video. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day. And I will see you all in the next one.